Hello everyone. Today I'm just gonna talk briefly about creating meaning with type. Um, this screencast isn't very so much um, set aside for a typography type of tutorial or screencast, but it's just going to teach you the basics of creating meaning with type. So just a little warning about that. We're just going to talk about a few things, and first I'm going to just give you a really short history on how type has changed over the centuries. Then I'll talk about how type can be used to create meaning, which will flow into how serifs influence meaning, and how font styles, spacing, and value influence meaning. So, let's just go on, start with the lesson. So over time, type has moved from a hand-drawn look to a mechanical look. This new style started back with Gutenberg. Now, this was the first type. If you look at the black letter type, this was the first type that was used to print. And Gutenberg tried to handwrite, or in other words, copy handwritten type exactly. And if you look closely, you can see the small elements in the letter B. And we notice a good use of counter space, which we need to remember that this type of font was handwritten by Gutenberg. Very raw. And Gutenberg, in this specific type, copied it from the Bible. So this type was used as the Bible's font, a very famous font. Now later on, there was a time where we wanted type to be more readable, and that changed over to the humanist type. It turned more into a more Roman look, and the serifs, if you notice, look more hand-drawn. The humanist type is a very famous type and very different than a regular serif font. You can notice the E is sort of slanted, which creates that effect of the humanist. And the serifs are just more hand-drawn, more naturally stroked, rather than a really harsh serif at the tips of the letters. So after that type, the old style type font came about, and this font is much more mechanical than the humanist font. It has a handwritten feel to it also. It can also tie into the humanist, but you do notice the E's are quite different, which makes this humanist and this an old style. Um, the old style, also fits into the transitional um, type, and you can start to see that it's starting, the stroke right on the right side of the A is starting to get a little thicker, with thicker, more strokes or serifs, and you can notice that it's starting to become more of a type rather than a handwritten almost type. Um, Now, the O's in the modern fonts can sometimes have a slanted O, and they are much more mechanical but still keep a natural handwritten effect to it. Modern is one of my favorite fonts, and if used correctly, you could use it for some really great logos or headers, um, or just some main uh, elements you would use on a web page or in a graphic. So modern is a great font to learn about. Let's talk about slab serif. So slab serif introduces serif fonts and has strong serifs, very strong, more like it's just part of the whole unit. It's like all one unit. It's not like it was kind of just brushed off. It looks like it's just bold and just sticks to the letters. And you notice the A is very strong, very based. So that creates a really strong kind of font. Later on, about midway through or during the 20th century, there was a move to get rid of the serif fonts altogether. So the anonymous sans and the humanist sans have kind of a clear statement meaning, and they're somewhat similar. Both, you can notice the S is more of it kind of bases it off almost the letter O, and the humanist sans is more like a handwritten, kind of like it's a little more taller and structured and edged than a anonymous sans. Now the geometric sans, the last one, you can see that the C's and the E's are based off the O. And so if you see the O, it's the E's kind of based off it, and the C. And all these letters have a circle type of design to it. So if we go on, so let's say if you're choosing sans serif fonts such as this Arial, you're going to have a more contemporary and mechanical look. But if you choose to use a serif font such as this transitional, the look and feel of the type becomes more comfortable. How type can be used to create meaning, and how font style, spacing, and value influence meaning. So if we look at this example right here, you'll notice that we have Georgia, Impact, Courier, and Trebuchet. Now, if we look at the font styles, first with Georgia, you notice that, remember, we read shapes, we do not read letters. It's very simple, very pleasing to the eye. Then if we change the, let me try something real quick. If we change the case to uppercase, you'll notice that, let me see here so I don't lose my place. You'll notice that it still keeps its form, it still keeps it's still capitalized, and it keeps it more like here. It gives a more sort of statement that says, here am I, look at me, I'm important, rather than this italicized Georgia with some, you can notice there are some letter spacing in here, and this is gets a little more quieter, and this Georgia with all lowercase is very, very quiet. So you can go from really normal to really big to little softer but still very important to very soft. Now with Impact, this font is pretty much automatically loud. It just screams in your face. It doesn't matter if it's lowercase or all uppercase. It's just that font that it just screams at you. So knowing how to play with this font in design is very important. You don't just want to put Impact everywhere. It's like very confusing to the eye and not very pleasing. So if we use uppercase and lowercase, here's the default Impact, and you can notice the Impact, all caps, it just screams in your face. Then what we could do is we take this Impact and we switch it all to lowercase, and put some letter spacing in between, which makes you breathe a little bit. Kind of like it's still pretty strong, but it's just going to let you breathe just a little bit. And impact, it's just a little quieter. It still is pretty loud, but it's much more quieter than this and this. Now, courier. With courier, there isn't so much options, but it's like almost a typewriter type of text. So if you, this courier type kind of, it kind of portrays a kind of feeling of old, like an older audience or an older feel. A more younger audience would have to be trebuchet. But if you do not need to use courier, I would just leave it alone. Um, Mainly what you would use courier is you would just use the default with the font weight and italicized courier. There isn't really much you could do. Um, but with trebuchet, you can use upper and lowercase or all uppercase, which is very, very professional. The trebuchet with some letter spacing, all uppercase, it's so sleek and doesn't yell at you as much. This does have a heavy kind of yell, but this doesn't yell at you as much. And trebuchet over here is a little softer, more softer than this. So if we were going to go loudest to quietest, we would have to go compact is the loudest. And let me get my drawing tool here. So we'll go that, not compact, impact is the loudest, and Georgia is the quietest, is the more quiet one. So that's just some, those are just some tips on creating meaning with type. And if you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to comment below and stay tuned for more screencasts. Thanks.